A secret kiss in the frozen silence of Ushuaia blurs the line between acting and desire as Jimin and Jungkook face danger, truth, and themselves. "Don't move," Jungkook whispered, his breath trembling in the icy air as the shadow behind Jimin crawled closer across the snow. Jimin froze. The wind sliced between them, carrying the metallic scent of cold iron and the distant hum of the film crew's generator far behind the ridge. The cameras weren't rolling now. This moment wasn't part of any script. But the fear was real, sharp, immediate, blindingly intimate. "What is it?" Jimin's voice cracked, barely audible beneath the roar of Patagonia's winter wind. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. His gloved hand reached out, brushing Jimin's jaw as he pulled him a step back, closer into the shelter of his body. The warmth of Jungkook's chest pressed against Jimin's spine, grounding him with a force that felt too instinctive to be just protective. Jimin inhaled sharply, pulse racing. He didn't know whether to focus on the looming danger or the closeness he had spent months trying to rationalize. "There's someone watching us," Jungkook murmured, tension threading his tone. "Up there, between the rocks." Jimin turned just enough to see Jungkook's eyes. They were darker than the night creeping over Ushuaia, reflecting fear, adrenaline, and something else, something softer, more dangerous. "Is it paparazzi?" Jimin asked. "I don't know." Jungkook's jaw clenched. "But they've been following since sunset." The sky above them was a violent blend of purples and bruised gold, the last of the daylight surrendering to the southern night. Filming for the special episode had dragged longer than expected, and now they were alone on the trail. No staff, no cameraman, no safety. Just the two of them and the vast, unpredictable wilderness. Jimin shivered. Jungkook felt it. "Come here," Jungkook said, pulling Jimin deeper into the rock's shadow. Snowflakes clung to Jimin's hair, glimmering like tiny shards of glass. "You're freezing. And you're too warm," Jimin muttered, trying to sound light, but his voice betrayed him. Jungkook didn't smile. He just held Jimin's face between his cold palms, eyes scanning the ridge above. Protectiveness radiated from him, raw, instinctive, intense enough to make Jimin's throat tighten. They stayed like that, bodies nearly pressed together, breaths clouding in the frigid air. Then the shadow moved again. Jungkook reacted instantly, pulling Jimin down with him behind the boulder. They fell hard into the snow, the impact punching air from Jimin's lungs. Jungkook's body covered his protectively, muscles taut, breath ragged. "Are you hurt?" Jungkook asked. Jimin shook his head, but his hands wouldn't stop trembling. "Jungkook, I'm scared." "I know." Jungkook's voice softened. "I'm here." Something unspoken swirled between them, thick and magnetic, alive. Jungkook lowered his face, forehead brushing Jimin's temple, the gesture desperate and tender. Jimin exhaled shakily as the warmth of Jungkook's breath seeped into him, soothing and electrifying at once. "This isn't just the shoot anymore, is it?" Jimin whispered. Jungkook froze. He pulled back slightly, just enough for their eyes to lock. Under the dim light reflected off the snow, his gaze held a truth he had been fighting for months. Jimin could see it, feel it, burning through the fog of fear. "No," Jungkook said quietly. "It's not." The sound of ice cracking in the distance snapped the moment, but neither moved. Jimin swallowed. "Then what are we doing, Jungkook?" Trying not to make a mistake, Jungkook breathed. "And failing." Before Jimin could speak, a burst of snow crunched somewhere behind them. Too close. Too deliberate. Jungkook's arms tightened around him again. "Stay down," Jungkook hissed, but Jimin grabbed his wrist. "We can't just hide." Jungkook's eyes softened again, the way they only softened for him. "I'm not hiding. I'm protecting you." "And who protects you?" Jimin whispered back. Silence. Wind wailed between the rocks like a warning. Their breaths synchronized, warm clouds merging in the cold. Another crunch, a heavy step. Jungkook leaned closer, lips brushing dangerously near Jimin's cheek as he whispered, "If something happens, you run back to the camp. Don't look back." "I won't leave you," Jimin shot back, voice trembling. "Not again." Jungkook's expression cracked. Jimin saw the guilt flicker there, the quiet apology for every distance, every avoidance, every unspoken truth shoved under professionalism. Jungkook reached for him, thumb grazing the corner of his mouth in a gesture too intimate to be accidental. "I'm sorry," Jungkook breathed. "For what?" Jimin whispered. "For this." Then Jungkook kissed him. It was desperate and silent, A collision of fear and longing pulled tight by the cold. Jimin gasped into the warmth of Jungkook's mouth, his fingers curling into Jungkook's jacket as the kiss deepened, slow at first, then urgent, like they had both been holding their breath for too long. The danger didn't vanish, but it receded, swallowed by the overwhelming pull between them. Snowflakes melted on their skin. The world paused. The wind hushed, but when Jungkook pulled away, breath trembling against Jimin's lips, his eyes were full of fear. "Jungkook," Jimin whispered. "Was that part of the shoot?" Jungkook shook his head. "No. God, no." "Then why?" "Because I thought it might be the last chance." A cold pulse of dread shot through Jimin's chest. "What are you talking about?" "There's something I haven't told you," Jungkook said, voice tight. "About why we were sent here. About the person following us." The crunch of snow echoed again, this time unmistakably close. Jimin's heart hammered. Jungkook pulled him tighter. "Whatever happens," Jungkook whispered, "I need you to trust me." Jimin nodded, breath unsteady. "I do." Jungkook exhaled a shaky breath, pressing his forehead to Jimin's once more before rising slowly, positioning himself between Jimin and the sound. The shadow moved again. Jungkook's fists tightened, and the night in Ushuaia opened its arms to whatever was coming for them. The night deepened around them, swallowing the last traces of the sun as Jungkook stepped forward, positioning himself like a shield. His boots sank into the snow with a soft crunch that sounded too loud in the tight air. Jimin rose slowly behind him, every muscle tensed, heart pounding hard enough that he feared the sound alone would give them away. "Jungkook," Jimin whispered, but Jungkook lifted a hand, silent, focused, every instinct sharpened by adrenaline. The shadow above shifted again, and this time Jimin saw the glint of something metallic catching the dying light. His breath hitched. Jungkook noticed it too, shoulders stiffening, jaw tightening like a trapped animal preparing to strike or run. Then a soft laugh drifted down the hill. It wasn't loud, but it echoed like a crack in the ice. Jimin felt the blood drain from his face. Jungkook stepped closer to him, gripping his wrist subtly, the warmth of his touch grounding but trembling with a fear he didn't dare show. "Who's there?" Jungkook called out, voice steady despite the tension raking through it. "Show yourself." Another laugh, this time lower, closer. Jimin pressed against Jungkook's back, unable to stop himself. Jungkook slid a hand behind him, fingers brushing Jimin's thigh just enough to reassure him, to tell him he was there. The touch was protective but intimate, a reminder of the kiss they had shared minutes earlier, something real, something dangerous, something neither of them could take back. A figure finally emerged from the darkness, stepping down the rocks with deliberate calm. A hood covered most of their face, but the smirk was unmistakable. It was Marco, the assistant fixer hired by the production crew in Ushuaia. Jungkook's grip on Jimin tightened instantly. "You've been following us?" Jungkook demanded. Marco shrugged lazily. "It's part of my job." "No it isn't," Jimin shot back, voice trembling with both anger and fear. "The crew doesn't assign anyone to stalk us after filming." Marco chuckled again, this time with something sharper underlying it. "You boys are far more interesting when the cameras are off." Jungkook stepped fully in front of Jimin now, blocking Marco's line of sight. "What did you see?" Marco raised a brow. "Depends. Are we talking about your little argument earlier? Or the kiss?" Jimin felt like the snow beneath him vanished. His lungs locked. Fear swallowed every coherent thought. Jungkook moved so fast Jimin barely saw it. He grabbed Marco by the jacket and slammed him against the rock with a force that sent snow cascading from above. Jimin flinched at the thud, but he didn't move away. He couldn't. "You tell anyone," Jungkook growled, voice shaking with fury, and Marco smirked even while pinned. "Relax. I'm not here to ruin your careers. If anything, I'm impressed." Jimin's heart twisted painfully. Jungkook was trembling, not from cold but from the terror of what exposure could mean, not just for their image, but for whatever fragile thing was growing between them. Jimin stepped forward and touched Jungkook's arm. "Let him go," Jimin whispered. "Please." Jungkook's breath was ragged, chest heaving. He met Jimin's eyes, searching for something, permission, reassurance, sanity. Slowly, Jungkook released Marco, but the tension in his body stayed coiled tight, ready to snap if provoked again. Marco straightened his jacket, unfazed. "You two need to be more careful. Ushuaia may be remote, But secrets travel fast. Jungkook's voice dropped to a low warning. If you follow us again, I won't, Marco interrupted casually. I got what I needed. Jimin inhaled sharply. What does that mean? Marco gave a slow smile that made Jimin's skin crawl. You'll find out soon enough. He walked past them, his shoulder brushing Jungkook in a way that felt taunting, deliberate. Jungkook turned, ready to lunge again, but Jimin grabbed him with both hands. Stop, Jimin said, breath trembling. Let him go. Jungkook didn't move. His muscles were rigid beneath Jimin's hands, his jaw locked in silent rage. Jimin slid closer until their bodies touched, until Jungkook's breathing synced with his. He won't tell anyone, Jimin whispered. You don't know that. Jungkook's voice was low, cracked. You don't know what people will do when they want something. What does he want? Jimin asked, searching Jungkook's eyes. That's what scares me, Jungkook whispered. Snow drifted around them, soft and ghostly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The danger had passed, but the weight of what had just happened settled deep into the air, cold and suffocating. Finally, Jungkook cupped Jimin's face with both hands. I shouldn't have kissed you, Jungkook said, voice breaking. Jimin's breath froze. Why? Because it makes you a target, Jungkook murmured. And I can't protect you from everything. Jimin shook his head. I don't want protection. I want the truth. Jungkook looked torn, eyes flickering with a storm of guilt, longing, fear, and something impossibly tender. He ran his thumb along Jimin's cheek, leaving a warm streak on cold skin. The truth is I've wanted to kiss you for months, Jungkook confessed. And tonight I lost control. Jimin swallowed, pulse racing. Then don't pretend it meant nothing. It meant everything, Jungkook whispered. Jimin felt the world tilt. He closed the distance between them, leaning into Jungkook's touch. Their breaths mingled, warm against the bitter cold, but before their lips could meet again, the radio on Jungkook's belt crackled violently. Jungkook? Jimin? Do you copy? We've got an emergency. Both of them stiffened instantly. Jungkook grabbed the device. This is Jungkook. What's wrong? Static filled the speaker, followed by fragments of panicked voices, wind, something that sounded like shouting. Then one clear message broke through. Marco is missing. Jimin's blood ran cold. Jungkook's eyes widened. The radio clicked again. We found his jacket near the cliff. There's blood on it. The world fell silent. The cold felt sharper. Jungkook's grip on the radio tightened dangerously, his expression twisting into something unfamiliar, fear mixed with disbelief. But he was just here, Jimin whispered, voice cracking. We just saw him. Jungkook turned toward the trail Marco had taken moments earlier. Nothing moved. Nothing stirred. The snow was untouched. It was as if Marco had never walked away at all. Jimin clung to Jungkook's arm, suddenly unable to breathe. The kiss, the confession, the threat, everything dissolved beneath this new terror creeping through the night. Jungkook swallowed hard, eyes scanning the darkness. We're not alone out here, he whispered. Jimin felt it too. Something else was watching them. Something that wasn't Marco, something that had been there long before the first shadow moved. And for the first time, Ushuaia didn't feel like a filming location anymore. It felt like a trap. Snow swallowed their footprints faster than they could make them. The wind cut across the trail like a blade, carrying with it a low, haunting whistle that didn't sound like wind at all. Jungkook kept Jimin close, one hand gripping his arm, the other curled into a fist as if he were ready to fight whatever hid in the dark. Slow down, Jimin gasped, trying to keep pace. Jungkook, wait. Jungkook didn't wait. He pulled Jimin behind a cluster of ice-coated trees, breath visible, ragged. His eyes darted across the ridge, scanning, calculating, fighting the rising panic that threatened to swallow him. I don't understand, Jimin whispered. He walked away. He walked right there. How can he be missing already? How can there be blood? Jungkook grabbed Jimin's shoulders, pressing him against the frozen trunk of a tree. Their breaths collided, warm, desperate, trembling. Listen to me, Jungkook said, voice low, vibrating with fear he couldn't hide. There's something wrong out here. Something we don't know. Something he knew. Jimin blinked, confused. What do you mean he knew? Jungkook's jaw tightened. His eyes lowered. Guilt flickered through them. He told me something earlier, Jungkook whispered. Before filming. He pulled me aside and said, he said that Ushuaia wasn't safe. Not for us. Not for you. Jimin stared at him, stunned. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't believe him, Jungkook said, voice cracking. I thought he was messing around. I didn't want you worrying over nothing. And now, his breath hitched. Now I don't know what's real anymore. Jimin exhaled shakily. His fingers rose instinctively, brushing Jungkook's cheek. You don't have to protect me from everything. You can trust me too. Jungkook closed his eyes at the touch, leaning into it for the briefest moment before pulling Jimin closer, their bodies nearly flush, the cold forgotten between their shared heat. You're the only thing I trust, Jungkook breathed. The admission stole Jimin's breath. He felt his heart drop, heavy and warm and breaking all at once. He reached up, curling his fingers into Jungkook's hair, pulling him down until their foreheads touched, until the world narrowed to the softness of Jungkook's exhale. Then Jimin lifted his face. Jungkook, kiss me, he whispered. Jungkook froze. The snow crackled around them like static. The forest seemed to stop breathing. Jungkook's thumb brushed Jimin's lower lip, slow, reverent, trembling. I don't want you to think I'm taking advantage of. You're not, Jimin cut in, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. I want this. Not because I'm scared. But because I've been wanting it for a long time. Something inside Jungkook broke. He didn't hide it this time. He kissed Jimin hard. It wasn't gentle like before. It was urgent, desperate, full of the fear of losing him and the relief of finally having him. Jimin gasped against Jungkook's lips, gripping his jacket, pulling him closer as Jungkook pressed him deeper against the tree trunk. The cold bark dug into Jimin's back, but he didn't care. Jungkook's mouth was warm, soft at first then hungry, like he needed this kiss to survive the night. Jimin moaned softly when Jungkook's hands slid down his sides, gripping his waist with a tenderness that contrasted the fierce way he kissed him. Jungkook pulled away just long enough to whisper against Jimin's lips. Tell me to stop and I will. Don't stop, Jimin breathed, pulling him back. Their breaths mixed in frantic bursts, fingers tangled in hair and fabric, heat blooming under layers of winter clothes. Jimin's pulse raced under Jungkook's touch, and Jungkook kissed him like he was afraid Jimin would disappear if he let go, but then, something snapped in the dark. A branch. A footstep. A warning. Jungkook broke the kiss instantly, body snapping into alert tension. He pressed Jimin behind him, shielding him again. Jimin's lips were still swollen, breath hitching, mind spinning, but the danger crashed back into focus as the wind cut through the silence like a scream. They weren't alone. A dark silhouette appeared between the trees. Taller than Marco. Broader. Moving too slowly to be human, too deliberately to be an animal. The shadow swayed as if studying them. Jimin's voice failed him. Jungkook stepped forward, his hand reaching behind without looking, fingers finding Jimin's to anchor him. He squeezed once, tight. The figure took a step closer, and the sound it made was wrong. Not footsteps. More like something dragging, something heavy scraping the ice. Then a voice rasped through the cold. Why are you here? Jimin shivered so violently his knees nearly gave out. Jungkook stiffened, jaw clenching as he pulled Jimin closer to him. Who are you? Jungkook demanded. No answer, just a slow, eerie movement of the shape tilting its head, like analyzing them. Then another whisper seeped through the trees, faint and layered, as if more than one voice spoke at once. He shouldn't have watched you. Jungkook's grip on Jimin turned iron-tight. Jimin's breath froze. Watched? You mean Marco? The figure stepped deeper into the shadows, obscured again, but its presence pressed against them like a weight. The air seemed to thicken, hard to breathe. The wind stopped entirely. Jungkook forced out a steady tone. What did you do to him? The voice came again, this time closer, as if it were standing right beside them. He saw too much. Jimin's heart stopped. Jungkook pulled him even closer, so close Jimin could feel Jungkook's heartbeat punching through his chest. What do you want? Jungkook demanded. A low whisper drifted past Jimin's ear, cold as death. To see what you're hiding. Jimin gasped and turned, but nothing was there. No figure. No silhouette. Nothing but snow and silence. The presence vanished like smoke, leaving only the lingering echo of a breath that wasn't theirs. Jimin pressed his face into Jungkook's shoulder, shaking uncontrollably. Jungkook wrapped his arms around him, pulling him into a fierce, protective embrace. It's okay, Jungkook murmured, though his voice was tight, shaking. I've got you. I'm right here. Jimin clung to him. Jungkook stroked the back of his head, trying to calm both of them down, lips brushing his temple in a soft, trembling kiss. This is getting worse, Jimin whispered. Whatever that was, it wasn't human. I know, Jungkook whispered back. But we're getting back to camp. Now. Jimin nodded against his chest. Jungkook cupped his face again, pressing a long, grounding kiss on Jimin's forehead, but as they stepped away, Jimin noticed something. On the snow where the shadow had stood, there were no footprints. Not a single one, and far in the distance, deeper into the forest, something let out a sound so chilling it didn't belong in any world they knew. The wind sharpened as they pushed deeper into the forest, each step a fight against the rising storm. Jimin stayed close behind Jungkook, their hands brushing, sometimes gripping, sometimes reaching without thinking. Neither spoke for several minutes. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, alive, pulsing with the memory of the voice that had whispered in the dark. Jungkook kept glancing back at Jimin as if to reassure himself he was still there. Jimin noticed every flicker of concern, every tightening of Jungkook's jaw, every breath that sounded more like fear than exhaustion. The kiss still lingered on his lips, warm even as the world around them froze. A reminder of something real, something fragile, something that suddenly felt like a weakness in a place where weakness could kill. Jungkook, Jimin whispered finally, unable to stand the silence. Do you really think Marco is gone because of us? Jungkook stopped walking, snow crunching softly beneath his boots. He looked back, and Jimin saw it, conflict burning behind the fear. I don't know, Jungkook said. But whatever that was, it wasn't after Marco. It was after us. After you. Jimin's breath caught. Jungkook stepped closer, brushing snow from Jimin's hair with trembling fingers. You don't get it, Jungkook whispered, voice breaking. I'm losing my mind thinking something might happen to you out here. I'm trying to stay calm, I'm trying to think straight, but every time you're out of reach I feel like he exhaled sharply, drowning in the words he never planned to say. I can't lose you. Jimin's chest tightened. He reached up, cupping Jungkook's face with both hands, forcing him to meet his eyes. Jungkook closed them for a moment, sinking into the touch like he needed it more than air. You're not going to lose me, Jimin whispered. Not to this place. Not to whatever that thing was. And definitely not because of what we feel. Jungkook opened his eyes at that, gaze wide, raw, unguarded. Say it, he breathed. What? What we feel. Jungkook stepped closer, until the heat from their bodies created a small oasis in the frozen storm. Say it, Jimin. I need to hear it. Jimin swallowed. Jungkook's nose brushed his. His hands slid around Jimin's waist, gripping the fabric of his jacket like he was holding on to the last piece of sanity left. Jimin felt his knees weaken, not from fear, but from the intensity of Jungkook's presence, the closeness, the desperation. I feel, Jimin's voice trembled. I feel like I've been running from you for months. But when you kissed me, it felt like finally a branch snapped violently somewhere to their right. Jungkook reacted instantly, pulling Jimin behind him and lowering his stance, eyes narrowing as he scanned the trees. The sound was wrong, too close, too sharp, like something heavy shifting in the snow. Stay close, Jungkook murmured. I am close, Jimin whispered back, voice trembling but steadying as he gripped Jungkook's jacket. I'm not letting go. Jungkook glanced at him for a heartbeat, just long enough for a flicker of heat to pass between them, before turning back to the darkness. A silhouette drifted between the trees. Not the same shape as before, this one was smaller. Moving faster. Human. Jungkook's breath hitched. Is that? Before he could finish, a figure stumbled into the open, half falling into the snow. Jimin gasped when the face caught the faint spill of moonlight. It was one of their crew members, Hannah, the youngest production assistant. Her face was pale, lips blue, hands shaking violently. She tried to speak but choked on the cold, falling forward. Both of them rushed to her, Jungkook wrapping his arms around her shoulders while Jimin supported her head. Hannah? Hey, Hannah, look at me, Jungkook urged, tapping her cheek softly. What happened? She shook her head, tears freezing as they streamed down her face. It's still there. It's watching the camp. I ran. I didn't know where to go. Jimin pulled Jungkook's scarf off his neck and wrapped it around Hana's shoulders. The sudden exposure to the cold slapped at his skin, but Jungkook didn't hesitate to press closer, warming him from behind. His arms circled Jimin's waist for a moment, instinctive, protective. I saw something move, Hana whispered, voice trembling uncontrollably. But it wasn't human. It wasn't. Another sound interrupted her, a low, vibrating rumble that vibrated through the ground. Jungkook's arm tightened around Jimin instinctively. Hana covered her ears and sobbed. We have to move, Jungkook said urgently. The storm's getting worse. And if the thing is near camp, there's no safe way back. Jimin met his eyes. Then what do we do? Jungkook swallowed. There's only one place we can go. Jimin blinked. Where? Jungkook exhaled slowly. The abandoned research station. Jimin's blood ran cold. The one they warned us not to get close to. The one the locals said was shut down because of. Jungkook stopped himself when Hana whimpered. He lowered his voice. Because people disappeared there. Yes. Jimin stared at him. You think that place is safer? Jungkook brushed snow from Jimin's eyelashes gently, his thumb lingering too long. I think it's safer than going back toward that thing. Another rumble shook the trees. Jungkook looked at Jimin with fear he couldn't hide. Jimin touched Jungkook's cheek again, grounding him, calming him in a way no one else could. We'll be okay, Jimin whispered. As long as we stay together. Jungkook leaned his forehead against Jimin's, breathing him in, stealing a moment of warmth before the cold swallowed them again. I'm not letting you out of my sight, Jungkook murmured. You won't have to, Jimin promised. But before their lips could meet again, Hana screamed. A dark hand, long and thin, like it was carved from shadow, dragged across the snow behind her, disappearing beneath the ice. Jimin froze. Jungkook's pulse spiked against Jimin's fingers. The shadow wasn't gone. It had followed them and no, it was beneath them. The storm over Ushuaia finally broke the moment Jimin stepped out onto the cliffside, the snow falling softer now, as if the world itself had exhaled after days of holding its breath. Jungkook followed a few steps behind him, breathing hard, not because of the wind but because the truth had finally cornered them both, leaving no room for denial, pretense, or careful lines drawn by the cameras they had been running from for so long. Jimin didn't turn when he spoke, his voice barely louder than the wind. You're not supposed to follow me. Jungkook stopped only when he was close enough to touch the back of Jimin's coat with the tips of his fingers. You knew I would. You always know. For a long moment, the only sound was the distant crackle of radio static from the abandoned crew tent far behind them, where earlier chaos had erupted over the leaked footage. The secret kiss. The spark that wasn't scripted. The moment that destroyed the line between performance and truth. Jimin lowered his head as the memory washed through him, hot and cold at the same time. Everything changed after that night, he whispered. It didn't change, Jungkook said, stepping beside him so he could see his face. It just finally showed itself. Jimin met his eyes, and something inside him trembled at the certainty he found there. There had always been a gravity between them, subtle, persistent, impossible to ignore, but they had spent years orbiting carefully, pretending they could keep their distance. Pretending the glances, the touches, the unspoken words were harmless, but Ushuaia had stripped everything away. The cold, the exhaustion, the raw filming schedule, the secrecy, the emotions sharpened by isolation. It had pushed them past the edge. Jimin let out a shaken breath. They think we did it on purpose, he said. They think it was part of the shoot. Was it? Jungkook asked softly. Then, with a courage that made Jimin's chest ache, he added, was it for them, or was it for me? The question cracked something open. Jimin felt it spill out, fear, desire, confusion, longing, blending together too tightly to separate. It was real, he finally admitted. Too real. Jungkook's jaw tightened with something like relief and devastation intertwined. Then why did you run? Jimin's voice broke before he could control it. Because if I stayed, I wouldn't have stopped. And I was afraid of what that meant. Jungkook reached up and cupped his cheek, warm even in the frigid wind. Jimin leaned into the touch before he could stop himself, closing his eyes as their foreheads gently met. I'm not afraid anymore, Jungkook whispered. Not of them, not of the cameras, not of what people will say. I'm only afraid of losing you. Jimin laughed shakily, a sound thick with emotion. You never lost me. I was just hiding. Then don't hide now. Jimin opened his eyes, and the world, icy, vast, and endless, felt suddenly small compared to the warmth blooming between them. Jungkook's breathing hitched when Jimin's hand slid up his chest, slow but certain. No cameras, Jimin murmured. No scripts, Jungkook answered. No pretending. That was the final truth. The one they had been circling for too long. And when Jimin kissed him again, slow, deliberate, devastatingly honest, it wasn't a secret, nor a mistake, nor a moment stolen in the shadows of a chaotic shoot. It was the conclusion of everything they had been running from and everything they had been moving toward. When they parted, Jungkook rested his forehead against Jimin's, eyes closed as though committing the moment to memory. Below them, Ushuaia stretched in silent white, its vastness dwarfing everything except what they felt. What do we do now? Jimin asked quietly. Jungkook slid his hand down to lace their fingers together, anchoring them both. We stop letting fear decide for us. And whatever comes next, we face it together. Jimin squeezed his hand, grounding himself in the warmth that had steadied him through so many storms, this being the fiercest and the most intimate of all. Together, he echoed. And for the first time since the secret kiss that set everything on fire, the two of them stood without running, without hiding, without pretending. Just two souls finally choosing the truth, even in a world determined to misinterpret it. Behind them, the snow continued to fall, soft as an ending and gentle as a beginning.